I'll note that it's not just Hill staffers who don't get it. I mean, I think one of the frustrations that we have is the narrative that the State Department and the inside the Beltway consensus has. And you mentioned, viewing it in terms of farmer-herder conflict driven by climate change, which may be an aspect, but it is not the major issue. And it is important, I think, to identify who are the perpetrators. And in this case, it is Fulani extremists. It is ethno-religious chauvinism, and it is something really that is impacting all Nigerians who are not Fulani. It is the Christians, certainly in the Middle Belt, are targeted, but also Muslims. If you're Yoruba and Muslim, you are targeted as well. If you are Shia Nigerian in Kaduna, you are also targeted. And what's also important, I think, to understand is that the government under President Buhari is dominated by Fulani, and there's been an overall Fulanization of all aspects of the security apparatus of the military and key positions within the Nigerian government, including the Supreme Court, where the Chief Justice a number of years ago, Walter Onegan, was removed and replaced by a Fulani Islamist, essentially. So that dynamic is very important, and there's a certain unwillingness and a blindness and a lack of a will to see what is actually happening. Now, what is interesting, I think, what is illustrative, is that if you go back a decade ago, there was similarly a unwillingness on the part of the State Department, in particular, but the intelligentsia, to identify Boko Haram for what it was, as a terrorist movement. And we can go into nuances. Boko Haram is different. It's Salafist and whatnot. But there was real resistance, particularly under Hillary Clinton when she was Secretary of State, and Johnny Carson when he's Assistant Secretary for Africa, to designate Boko Haram as a foreign terrorist organization. To give credit where it's due, that changed when John Kerry was Secretary of State and Linda Thomas Greenfield became Assistant Secretary. And Boko Haram was designated a foreign terrorist organization. A positive, and also get into a negative, we now realize that Boko Haram and its offshoots, such as Islamic State West Africa, such as Ansaru, are Islamists with an agenda that they're committed to mass atrocities. And that has become an accepted view, whereas before it was not. It was resisted and fought. The problem here, though, I think, is that now it's very convenient to put all extremism in Nigeria and West Africa, for that matter, more broadly, into the Boko Haram basket and its other affiliated or splinter organizations, and not to address the larger agenda of Fulanization. And it's also, I think, there's also a lack of historical knowledge as well. Those that are familiar with the history of Nigeria understand the role that Usman Dan Fodio played in West Africa, going back into the late 18th, early 19th century, and the expansion of the caliphate, the Sultanate of Sokoto in Nigeria. And what's interesting is that the other groups, such as the Kanuri, they were already Muslim. They were then displaced by that. The British imperial expansion checked that, and that, you had this generally, in rough terms, Christians in the south, Muslims in the north, but it's far more divided, as I said earlier. It's not, certainly we don't want to lump all Fulani, but by and large, this is driven by Fulani ethno-religious chauvinism, and it can be directed towards Muslims as well. But it is an agenda that has existed really since the 18th century, and I would encourage those who are unfamiliar to read that history. What is very important, I think, by this film, and also by Mr. Lévy's article in the Wall Street Journal last year, is that it does identify the ethno-religious chauvinism as the Fulani as a driver. And it also, and Bob alluded to this, it points to a role by Turkey. That's something that has been ignored, I think. We do know of Turkish arms shipments to West Africa. Turkey is competing with Saudi Arabia for leadership in the Sunni Muslim world. It is something I think that has to be examined much more closely. We see Turkey involved in the Horn of Africa, but also in West Africa. And that's another aspect that your article in the Wall Street Journal addressed, but has not received enough attention here. Anyway.